This is the Barbados Today morning news for Friday, July 14. Thank you for joining us. I am Mary Claire Williams. We begin with news that police are investigating the unnatural death of a 48-year-old man. Police spokesman, Acting Inspector Roland Cobbler, confirmed to Barbados Today that the incident occurred in Todsland, St. George, shortly after noon yesterday. We will have more details as they become available. In other news, one stalwart of the opposition Barbados Labour Party is defending trade unions and the current BLP leadership following criticisms levelled against them by former Prime Minister Owen Arthur. Following a march to Parliament on Tuesday, the unions gave government 48 hours to grant their members relief from the increased National Social Responsibility levy, or they threatened to escalate their protest action. Arthur called for cooler heads to prevail, saying this is not the time for political theatre or gimmickry. But Sir Richard Cheltenham says the country's workers cannot be ignored, and he says Prime Minister Ferndale Stewart may have missed the hour when he reportedly refused to grant an audience to the 4 labour unions, an allegation that Stewart has since denied.
He wouldn't have been the first man to step out of cabinet for 15 minutes. The workers can't be ignored. I mean, what is stepping out of cabinet? Often because he was not there, and other prime ministers before him and other people took control of the cabinet. There's nothing big as stepping out of cabinet for 15 minutes. Nobody should be misled about these sorts of things.
Okay.
Prime ministers are often out of the country. The cabinet go on and the public business go on.
Sir Richard also refuted Arthur's charge that the office of the Prime Minister is being disrespected.
Not even thought disrespect, but diminished regard. The people determine these matters. But I don't think it'd be right to say that the office is diminished and they may not be happy with the present holder, but it's not diminished regard for the office. It's diminished regard for the holder.
Okay.
And all of that depends on perceived performance of the holder of the office in the people's eyes.
And today is the day that the island's major trade unions are to decide on their next course of action against government's austerity measures following Tuesday's March for Relief. Government had until Thursday to respond or face a possible national shutdown. At news time, there was no word on whether the unions and governments had reached a compromise, but it appears that they may be getting some support from the business community. Chairman of the Private Sector Association, Charles Herbert, says the business community shares the union's concerns.
We've talked with the unionists to see what common positions we have between the private sector and the union. If we don't have common positions, we can't join them, but if we do have common positions, then we might. So we just can't say too much at this stage, man. And all you can say at this stage is that we are talking with each other and we are exploring our common positions. After that, you have to interpret what would happen if we find that we have common positions.
Herbert added that the private sector also wants further dialogue with government on issues of national importance.
We had met to see what common positions we had. We had a very good meeting, and that we were going to take the recommendations of the meeting back to our constituent boards before making a public statement. And really, if people said, you know, what were our most common things, and it really was that we were not happy with the level of dialogue with government over our financial problems and over the budget.
Commercial banks here have resumed real estate-related transactions after some of their concerns over the issuance of tax clearance certificates were addressed by the state's Revenue Collection Agency. But the lending institutions say the real estate industry still has some concerns. In late May, the bankers announced a suspension of over 300 real estate-related transactions due to a lack of clarity on the process involved in the issuance of tax clearance certificates by the Barbados Revenue Authority. And in an update this week, the BBA told Barbados Today the certificates are now being issued and the banks have begun to disburse and register securities. But it noted that the body is still in discussions with the BRA as there remain outstanding matters. Barbados Today understands that the BRA is currently reviewing a number of recommendations put forward by the bankers. And President of the Barbados Estate Agents and Valuers Association, Paul Aline, says while he welcomes any movement, the continued lack of clarity in some instances is not good for the industry.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Good morning, Phillips & Company, may I help? Oh, certainly. One moment, please. Miss Phillips?
Yeah?
There's a lady on the line from the Nation newspaper who would like to speak with you.
The Nation? Will she go on?
Well, they're trying to sell us some ads.
Look, don't make me laugh this morning. Ads in the Nation? They're real expensive, and for one here, nobody ain't buying them papers no more. Nobody ain't want to steal news. I hear reading Barbados Today online for free. So I tell she thanks for calling, but no thanks. We just advertising Barbados Today, families. Tell she is Barbados Today all the way.
Okay, I'll pass on the message. Ma'am, are you still there? Oh, she put it down.
The Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Thank you for staying with us. We're back now with news from the region. In St. Lucia, the opposition Labour Party is demanding a full explanation on the resignation of Agriculture Minister Jimmy Henry. Henry resigned earlier this week following reports that he was recently stopped and searched at the George Charles Airport. Opposition Senator Joachim Henry says the government owes the people an explanation.
According to the opposition senator, the St. Lucia Labour Party will continue to shed light on the important matters, as is its role as an opposition party. He calls on the nation's leader to clear the air on the circumstances surrounding Jimmy Henry's resignation.
It's not a hotel, and clearly if it was in a private business and there were a board of directors, the executive director would have to share a lot more to a board of directors of an organization, far less, or so much more a prime minister to its people, to the people of a country, who have placed him in that thing. And so clearly there must be, it's either one of contempt, it's certainly not one of knowledge that you are a prime minister of a country. Something as important as what is in the air has happened, and then one could just flippantly or almost, as if you do not want to say anything, just gloss over it and expect that it's adequate for St. Lucia. If a board of directors of a bank, of a private business, of a hotel would demand more from its managers, St. Lucia as a country, the people of St. Lucia demand a lot more from its prime minister. And therefore what has happened is inadequate, far from adequate, and the Constitution provides some guidance for which this should happen.
Prime Minister Chasney is scheduled to return from vacation on July 31st.
And finally, China is facing international criticism for not allowing its most prominent dissident, Liu Xiaobo, to be treated abroad for terminal liver cancer. The activist was serving an 11-year term for subversion when he died in a hospital. Amid tributes for the late campaigner, the Nobel Committee, which gave him the Peace Prize in 2010, said China bears a heavy responsibility for his death. Beijing is now being called upon to free his wife from house arrest. And that's news this morning. You can get more on our website, www.barbadostoday.bb. You could also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We're on Izumi Media in bus terminals and Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also tune into Mix 96.9 FM for more news. I am Marie Claire Williams. Have a good morning.